All right, so you're going to be completing today, okay, this vector assignment. It's basically 10 problems on vector addition. Right? Some of them are very easy, like question number 1, where you have two collinear vectors. You just have to add them together. Okay. Now, the trick with number 1, guys, is that it's actually more of a significant digit check. Okay. So you've got those two vectors, D1 and D2. They both point the same direction, 35 degrees north of west. Okay. One has a magnitude of 4.60 kilometers. The other has a magnitude of 3.20 kilometers. Okay. What are the magnitude and direction of the resultant vector? Okay. Just keep in mind measured values, adding things together. Okay, on that one. For question number 2, people get all like confused, not so much confused, but they do something bad with number 2 because they picture it in their mind. Okay. They have 2 ropes attached to a heavy box pulling it along the floor. And so they picture 2 ropes attached together at the back pulling on a box, and they draw it that way. Okay? How do we draw all vector quantities? Tail to head. Keep that in mind. That's your hint for number 2. Vectors are always drawn tail to head. And it doesn't matter that these are force vectors because all vector quantities are drawn that way. Okay? The only thing that's going to be different here is your end units will be newtons instead of meters, right? But don't change anything just because you visualize this as 2 ropes attached to a box pulling, okay? Remember, the box is going to go in the direction that it arrives at because of the tail to head addition, not because of the tail to tail addition, okay? So keep that one in mind for that one. For number 3, a boat travels due east 5.74 and then travels 25 degrees south of east for 6.28 kilometers. Calculate the magnitude and direction of the resultant displacement. That's exactly like the kind of question you would get on your unit exam. We've done a whole bunch like that before already. Okay, and then for number 4 is just vector components. So displacement vector is 145 meters and points at an angle of 28 degrees above the negative side of the x-axis. Vector is important here. And what I mean by vector is important, don't give vectors in your answer that aren't in the question. Okay, this is talking about an xy scatter plot where the line is pointing above the negative x-axis. It is not pointing west or south or anything like that. Okay, but that is the very common mistake on this question, is to put in vectors that you actually weren't given. Okay, your answer needs to reflect the vectors in the question. Okay, number 5, ocean liner leaves New York City, travels 18 degrees north of east for 155 kilometers. How far east and how far north has it gone? So again, just vector components. You're just finding the vectors here, and this time you were given compass directions, so you can give compass directions when you find the x and y components. All right, so 4 and 5 are just finding the x and y components of a vector. Super easy. Okay, number 6, sailboat travels due east 1.6 kilometers and then heads 35 degrees north of east for another 3.4. Okay, use vector component addition to calculate the resultant vector. Another one that'll be just like the one that's on your test. One straight vector, one angled vector. Okay, you just need to find the sum of those. Now, number 7 is the one I was telling you about. Okay, it's 3 vectors, the golfer one. Okay, yesterday it was football. Today it's golf. Okay, so you are just going to add those together. You got one that's due east, one that's angled, and one that's due north. So you really only have one you have to find the vector components for. Okay, so it's not nearly as much work as it might sound like when you first read it. Okay, and then number 8, okay, is 2 angled vectors. Vector component addition, same as always. Okay, you know how to do those. That one will probably take you a little bit longer. That's probably the longest one on the test, or on the assignment, not test. Okay, and then 9 and 10 are your boat questions. Okay, they are rowing a boat directly across, rowing a boat directly across. Neither one of them is going across. They're both rowing across questions. Okay. Any questions on what you have to work on here? I can give you the rest of class to work on that, so you should be able to get a pretty good start on that, I think. And I think I made the due date for that October 1st. Okay, so that's next week. I want to be able to get it marked and back to you before your unit exam, so you can use it to study.